Gabriel. We'll definitely be encouraging everyone to sign that petition. And when we have a Q&A at the end, I'm sure we can hear a bit more. I just wanted to say a bit more about what we were talking about regarding justice in this transition abuse. Now we've seen two different facets of that, and there are many more. So recognizing when we're tackling climate change that even though we're all affected, we're not all equally affected, as we've seen from these talks, and that needs to be part of our analysis when we're talking about solutions. Who are we keeping in mind, and who is going to be the first in line to receive those solutions? So thank you to both our first two speakers for shedding light on this very important issue regarding climate change and the intersectionality of the varying issues. Lynn, do you want to come up now?
Yes. It's now my pleasure to introduce to you Megan Whitfield. In 2014, Megan was elected president of CUPW Toronto Local. She has worked for Canada Post for over 17 years, and she also holds an executive vice president position representing workers of color for the Ontario Federation of Labour, and she's an executive board member for the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists Ontario chapter. She continues to fight for good jobs, social justice, and against climate change. And we're really pleased to have her with us today because labor's involvement in the struggle is so very, very important. So thank you, Megan, and please.
Thank you all. Thank you very much for having me here. Yeah, no matter what I do bring forth the labor perspective in anything I try to do throughout my work and in my community. I was asked to speak as well on Canada Post and their vision under CUPW, Canadian Union Postal Workers. The Canadian Union Postal Workers joined on to the fight, joined on to the late manifesto. And a matter of fact, when my first vice president asked me to speak on it, I didn't even realize what delivering community power was really about. But the more I learned about it, the more I tap into it. But one thing with labor, and even within our own, is getting our own members and the community engaged in such an important fight when it comes to climate change. So I'm here to speak in regards to our vision in the CUPW, the labor movement a little bit, some of the attacks that we are now getting, because the leap is becoming so progressive. Anytime you become progressive, you start getting attacked, and so the pushback as well. Canada Post is the largest public vehicle fleet in all of the country. We have the biggest infrastructure. What my brother Gabriel talked about before in regards to trade agreements, Canada Post had to fight in regards to NAFTA with UPS because we have the infrastructure in place and we have everything. And it's not just about delivering in the community, it's right throughout Canada. So whether you're in Toronto up to Nunavut, you could mail a letter and it's still $1 throughout the country, right? So people are trying to take that away, right? What we're also looking at now is going green, forcing Canada Post and the government to go green, right? And starting that next year, we're starting to change our fleets. And we have an opportunity to change over to electrical vehicles, right? Which is also a plus. When we change to electrical vehicles, it will mean that there'll be charging stations throughout all of Canada, right? We have the largest retail infrastructure in all of Canada. We have more retail outlets than we have Tim Hortons, believe it or not, once you reach outside Toronto. So imagine that. So that would actually allow even the public to buy more electrical cars because you don't have to worry. In almost every community there will be a charging station, so you don't have to worry about your cars being left somewhere else. It makes sense. When Home Depot has one or two and some of the other retailers are starting this, it makes sense for us to push back and have it. And by having our vehicles go green, it would also help the auto industry so we could get good jobs, keep the good jobs in Canada as well. Along with that, we have solar panels on all our depots and all our retail outlets. I was at the CUPE National Convention, Regional Convention last week, and I know Fred Hahn also tapped into this and said, why don't all our schools have solar panels? Right? There's ways that we have to start looking outside the box. So that's really important. So as well, labor is in every facet that we live in. Sometimes it's also starting to push back, right? We also say about home delivery. right? Mail delivery is the most important and fundamental rights we have as Canadians. Canadian government, well, when Justin was elected, he said he would stop door-to-door, so he has stopped it. We're asking him now to restore everything that we've lost, because we know that home door-to-door delivery it helps reduce fossil fuels to our customers, as well as it helps reduce the CO2 emission, right? Overnight, by having actual letter carriers on foot routes, imagine the reduction in regards to our environment, right? The letter carriers are the eyes and ears of our community. We check in on the elder every day. Nobody knows you more other than your family than your letter carrier. They can tell you what bills come when you're not there. We are the ones that know you second best to your family, believe it or not, right? So that's very important. And every other day you hear stories of whether it's somebody down and out, somebody not getting their mail picked up every day. Right? We also hear the negative about junk mail, what have you. But we know that we are a viable, trusted community, as well as the services. Like one of the services we have right here in Toronto, which was a pilot project, was what we call same-day delivery, which is also part of this delivering community power. We're already doing a lot of this, because there's some companies right now where you could have, for instance, Rogers and some of the banks. We would go to their outlets, pick up whatever they need, whether it's a phone or credit card, and have it to your door before 8 o'clock that night. So we are doing same-day delivery right now. Imagine if we expanded that into the community, where the farmers can now have you deliver your produce right to your door. Right? We deliver medicines right to doors right now. So these are things that are already just expand within the communities, especially rural Canada. Right? Canada Post is a community hub. In some places, the post office is everything we have. It's the eyes and ears, it's a gathering place. So imagine businesses to continue to expand on that. Even within CUPW, we petitioned Liberal government in Alberta signed on in regards to making sure they have internet access, because there's communities that don't have access. And imagine within the post office and those retail outlets to have Wi-Fi for people to come in, to be able to gather and use these things that are also affordable, if not downright cheap, because there's a lot of places that you can't afford internet access. Like the cheapest internet sometimes for home is like $60, $80 to $100. Most people that's between living or keeping your lights on or even feeding your family, right? As well as I said, we are the biggest, largest retail chain in all of Canada. And we do services now. We do a lot of it. But one of our biggest campaigns right now is also postal banking. Right? Good. And Canada Post Canada Post Corporation Postal Banking Act was up until 1968, and it was reintroduced into selective outlets projects in 1997. Canada Post has allowed to operate. We have everything set up already, and it's already been tested to be able to operate. I was in the United States over the weekend and I met with the American Postal Workers. And they're also having this fight in regards to postal banking, because what it means is actually bringing back postal banking to the community without the overhead costs of what big banks are costing. Like we do a lot of the services now. We do the money remittance, right? MoneyGram takes all that profit. Why should that profit come back to us? We hear Gabrielle talk about the seasonal agricultural workers. They are getting pimped by Money Mart every day. MoneyGram, sending money home every week to their families. Why can't we provide the same service, even cheaper, if not enough? Almost 50 years later, the arrival of telephone and online banking and big banks are now closing a lot of the outlets over 10 years. Some statistics, 84% of Newfoundland communities do not have a bank or credit union. 65% of the Nova Scotian communities do not have that either, and it goes on and on. Only 54 Indigenous communities out of 615 in the entire country have a banking outlet. So imagine where all those retailers to be able to provide banking services now. Over 2 million Canadians use payday lenders with interest rates over 4,000%. That's money lost to Canadians every day in municipals as well. The Bank of Montreal started a pilot project that provided banking services in Newfoundland post office in May 1997. The 2-year project was so successful that they actually expanded it to up to 2013, and it continues on and on. So now a lot of these big banks are saying, like, what is the pushback, right? Canada Post did an extensive study on postal banking back from 2009 to 2011. And what they did actually, it was successful, but they redacted everything. So they know that instead of it going out there to be delivered, they redacted it through Harper as well, that the public will not know exactly what the studies were, that it was actually more successful. It's actually a win-win proposal. It's win-win to keep the money into the community as well, right? Canada Post shows us that banking services are there. As a result, more than 1,200 Canadian communities do not have a bank or credit union, but they do have a post office. Canada Post's network of over 6,300 postal outlets is a perfect resource to fill the gap behind the bank enclosures in Canada Post. Canada's rural population also notes that the elder and urban population suffers the most. So we're out there and we continue to be out there. And when we look towards other countries, throughout Norway replaced diesel postal fleet with electric vehicles. It's being done, and we can't sit back and wait for things to happen. Like we're now going progressive. We need to continue to grow. When you look at United Kingdom, France, Brazil, Italy, they all have successful postal banks, as well as successful ATM. It's time for the government to give back to our community, our people, because you know what? Banking fees have gone from nothing to $1 to imagine $3. You're paying $3 on the tail end. Because the people that are affected the most are the people that don't have the money. We don't have $10,000 so we could forego an ATM fee. And there's an ATM everywhere you go. So why can't we now, as a public, own this and say no? Because then we would be regulated, right? We have the power to continue to regulate what we need to regulate. As well, what we want to do is continue to make our economy greener. We want green jobs. So a couple of weeks ago, I was actually speaking in regards to keeping the jobs green, and people were saying, but the unions are against this. I think most unions are also for this because, as I said, it's also keeping good jobs in Canada. As I said, when we have those fleets, it will be with the CUPW, with uniform, right? It's also saying no to the trade agreements because right now our biggest fight is the TPP. Yeah. And every government services is under attack for some type of privatization, right? As I said, it's keeping electrical, keeping the elderly and the less vulnerable, the most vulnerable, having the eyes and ears. At least once a week, you hear a successful story where whether a letter carrier or a delivery agent was out there, they noticed something wrong. We had one the other day that was fighting the fires that people would not know. The stories go on and on and on, right? Providing access to credit via postal banking is more than ever the most important. But delivering fresh produce to farms and households would strengthen local economies as well. As I said, we have expanded our same-day delivery pilot project from Toronto. We got to Vancouver, to Montreal, so it's not a matter, everything's in place. When we started the same-day delivery in Toronto, one of the biggest retailer that came out, the biggest pimp of all was Walmart. And we taught them how to basically do it, and then they took it away. And we were delivering to the most vulnerable because one of the things that they said was we were delivering mainly diapers and stuff to mothers that were home with their children that needed that service that had it to their door. So then Walmart went and started their own, and then they started their community lockers. Amazon, the same thing. So they're learning from us and they're taking it away. Well, we know the public continues to want a viable post office. Yeah. And right now we're in a fight for our life because unfortunately we're a crown corporation and we have every 10 years or so the mandate review comes up. So a couple of weeks ago the mandate review was called in regards to how we want to see Canada Post continue to operate. We want Canada Post to continue to be a public-owned, public for the public, for the people, and we're asking members to continue to tap into the mandate review. Go online to Canada Post, to the Canada.ca Canada Post Review. We will be having public hearings and submissions, and when those are called, we ask the community to continue to go out there and keep our post office public and continue to push for a greener society, continue to push for Canada Post to have everything in place so we can continue to be green because we have the infrastructure, we have everything in place, and we have the tools to keep it. It's achievable. It's not a dream. It's actually something that's already there. It's attainable. It's a pushback from us as well as our CEO. Thank you.